G'day champions, this is Lock-In with Lachlan, me the host Lachlan, and the guest today, Mr. Pienaar from Glasshouse Christian College.
Hello everybody, Mr. Pienaar, Mr. Jared Pienaar from Glasshouse Christian College. Thank you for inviting me, Lachlan.
No worries, sir. Alright, here's the first question. How important is being a father in today's society?
Great question, Lockie. Mm-hmm. It's a question that definitely is a little bit of thought.
Yep.
And I'm a dad, and I've got a daughter who turned 8 yesterday. I've got 2 twin boys who actually turned 6 today. And every kid needs a mum and needs a dad. Yep. And we're facing a time in society where divorce rates are up around 50%. Which is too high. And too often we've got kids who are living in different homes. Mum's house this week, dad's house that week. And it's not great for the kid. There's obviously many reasons why a mum and dad might divorce and separate and those type of things. And so, look, we're probably not going to get into that today. But kids need dads. They need a strong male role model in their lives who's present. Boys need to learn how to be a man. Girls need to see what it is to look for in a partner one day. And I think while the divorce rate is fairly high at the moment, like there's actually just a lot of dads who are skipping out on their families and disappearing and just abandoning them. And obviously that leaves a lot of hurt, a lot of trauma, not only to the mum, the wife, but to the kids themselves. And so, look, kids need a mum and a dad. Both are equally as important, and best case scenario, in a perfect world, mum and dad are there present in the kids' lives.
Yeah. So how has being a father changed your life?
I'll tell you what, mate, it has radically transformed me into a better human being. Highly recommend. Yep. Highly recommend becoming a father. Highly recommend getting married. I got married when I was 26. My wife, Haley, she was 25. And I'll be honest, it's the past, I'm turning 40 this year, believe it or not, even though I still look 21.
Congratulations, sir.
It has been the most refining experience of my life being a husband and a father. And if it wasn't for me getting married to Haley, if it wasn't for us, having Chelsea and having Nathan and Ryan, honestly, I'd feel like I'd just be a grown-up boy. I wouldn't be the man I am today. I would probably still be living a life of selfishness, of complete inward focus. And I find that being a dad right now, it's taking a lot of, I guess, the selfish desires that I used to have as a kid, as a young adult. And I've finally grown up into a man. And so my everything that I'm doing, my pure focus is making sure that my kids, Nathan, Chelsea, and Ryan, are being brought up in the most stable environment possible, the most safe environment possible. My focus is making sure that they've got food on the table every night, that they've got a roof over their head. And I think the most important thing is that I'm present. Yep. There are plenty of mums and dads out there who are doing their best to, earn money to make sure that there's food on the table and a roof over their head. But I think the most important role of a parent, and particularly a dad, is just to be present, to get home, to go and play catch and ball with your boys, to let their daughter cover their face in makeup and brush their hair and those type of things, just to be present in their lives and not be absent. All right. It's, I want my kids to know that they can always rely on me, that if they want to play, that I'll play with them, that if they want to talk, that I'll talk with them. And so just to answer your question again, I think it has shaped me and molded me into a complete human being. And I'm so grateful for the privilege of actually being a dad. It's the most important role I have in this life.
Yeah. Absent fathers are really a problem in today's society. You know,
Yeah.
I had an absent father. You know, I had to learn a lot of stuff by myself. I had to learn how to shave like 2 weeks ago, I think.
2 weeks ago, Lachlan.
Yep.
So, how long ago
Hmm?
did your dad leave? And
It's a really complicated story.
okay,
Not gonna really get down, not really deep, but it's just my mom and my dad didn't have a really good relationship. It wasn't really a good environment, but I'm kind of grateful that I was in that environment because I learned the opposite of what I should do.
Yep.
And it's absolutely it's life changing, you know. Like I started reading books, started learning how to be a better man, started watching podcasts. It's absolutely it's important to be a father.
Yeah.
And
Look,
then-
Lockie, I want to commend you on something. You recognise that the relationship that your parents had was toxic, and it
Yeah.
wasn't the best environment for, say, yourself and your brother to grow up in. And what I want to commend you on is that you've looked at that and gone, I don't want this for my life. I actually do want to be a man that contributes to society. I actually want to be a man that my kids can be proud of me one day. You know, someone that that any woman would love to be with, and you know, as a wife, and to build a home with you. And so I commend you on taking that positive outlook of kind of going, you know what, I haven't had the best upbringing. I'm not going to play victim. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that pain, I'm going to take that trauma, I'm going to turn it into something good. You're starting this podcast, which is excellent. You know, you've shown initiative in reading books and watching podcasts and those type of things. So I can see your passion, mate. I can see that you've got this desire that you want to help those who are in the same position as you. Whereas some people would go the opposite way. They'd play the victim. They go, you know what? I've just had bad stuff happen to me all my life. I'm going to be angry and bitter about it. And unfortunately, if they go down that path, like you're looking at youth crime and violence and future domestic violence and those type of things. And so, good on you, mate. Proud of you.
Thank you. Now, what do you think is the distinction between a man and a boy? Like, what's the difference between being a young adult and a young boy?
Good question. I would say the selfishness factor.
Yep.
I would say the being able to take responsibility for your actions. I would say the ability to actually apologize for the things that you've done. And it's something that I'm trying to do with the Year 9 boys in the right journey. You know, look, the right journey and the way I teach changes every year. And you guys may have heard this from me last year, but I'm really big on that if you've stuffed up, that you own up to that, regardless of whether you're going to get a punishment or not. Because the truth is, if you've done something wrong and you stand up and you apologize for it, there's a good chance you're getting punishment. There's a good chance there's a consequence. But the important part of the consequence and the punishment, it's that thing that sharpens you and it molds you. You think about how a blacksmith hammers away at a hot piece of iron and eventually turns into a sharp double-edged sword. I think that is the realities of standing up, admitting fault, asking for forgiveness, apologizing. It's not a nice process, just like I'm pretty sure that piece of iron is not enjoying being hammered away by a blacksmith. But man, that hammering away by the blacksmith, it's only making the metal stronger. It's only making it sharper. And I think, you know, the difference between a boy and a man is that the man's going to learn from their mistakes. The man's going to allow the mistakes that he makes to sharpen him. And I also think that a man is going to look at others' mistakes and kind of go, ooh, I don't want to do that. I'm going to make sure that I don't make the choices that person's made. You know? Whereas the boy, and I got to tell you, mate, I know a lot of people who are in their 30s and 40s who I still consider boys.
Yeah.
All right? Won't take responsibility for their actions. It's everybody else's fault. Their whole life is about fulfilling their own selfish lusts and desires and those type of things. Then they're constantly focusing inwardly and not outwardly. And I think that a man at heart is a servant. Okay, it's not all about his ego and his looks and his money and his ambition and his success. You know, a man will look out for those who are closest to him. I look at my wife and my kids, and my entire life is about sacrifice so that my wife and my kids can live safely, can live comfortably, that they can live knowing that they've always got someone to support them and love them. And a man has to have broad shoulders to be able to carry the weight of what's going on in their family. You know, we're all human beings. My wife, my kids, and I, we're going to make mistakes and those type of things because we are human. And as the man, in my opinion, I want to be there to kind of carry the weight of the mistakes that they make, or carry their sorrow, carry their anxiety and their depression and their anger, and just be a strong, safe haven for them, a strong tower, if you will, that they can always find refuge in.
Yeah. What a good response there. That was... I had to think all of that. So, do you think masculine is decreasing over the years? Do you think it's getting even worse?
I think it has.
Yeah.
And I've got to be careful with what I say, because obviously I don't want to try and offend anyone.
Yeah.
But I think about how back in the First World War, you had Australian boys who weren't of age, you know, who weren't allowed to go to war, but they were faking their ages. Some of these kids were your age, 15 years old, 16 years old, and pretending that, oh yeah, I'm 17, I'm 18, yeah, I just want to go to war there. And, you know, some of them genuinely wanted to defend their land. Some of them genuinely wanted to defend their families and those type of things, and they thought that was the best way to do it. So, you know, I think that men back then and through the ages were filled with bravery and courage, and ultimately were trying to lead these lives that were self-sacrificing. Okay, I will sacrifice my life for the protection of my family. Whereas now, I just, you know, fellas aren't building anymore. They're not playing sport anymore. They're not getting outside and finding adventure. They're addicted to video games. They're addicted to pornography. They are... I think that some of them are believe that the traditional masculine male or man is now somehow toxic, you know, and so they've been lied to their entire lives that to show any sort of masculinity, any sort of strength in being a male is dangerous, and that's so terrifyingly sad, you know. And so we have less men standing up for what's right in the world. We have less men who don't want to courageously defend their families and their country and those type of things. I'm not saying that war is a good thing. War is a terrible thing, you know, but inevitably we live in a world today where nations are rising up against nations. I've never seen humanity so divided, and we might well have an invading nation come to our shores one day. What are the men going to do? Are we going to run away and hide, or are we actually going to go, you know what? If we are invaded, I will take up a gun and defend my kids, defend my wife. And I just think that too many men are scared to do that. They don't want to count the cost of being a man and being a provider and being a protector. And I think that's a message I tried to say to you fellas last year. It was like, boys, if anything, your goal in this life should be to be a provider and a protector to those that you are responsible for. Provide by doing any job necessary to make sure there's food on the table and a roof over your head. A protector, I joke about this, but I'm being serious. I'd go to jail protecting my kids. Yeah. I'd go to jail protecting my wife, that no one's going to lay a hand on them. Yeah. You know, as a dad, I truly believe that I need to be the most dangerous person in the room. I want to be approachable. I want you fellas to know that you can come up to me, talk to me about anything, and I'll put my arm around you, I'll cry with you, I'll offer advice and those type of things. So I want to be the most approachable person in the room, but also want to be the most dangerous person too, that you don't put your hand on my wife. Yeah. You don't put your hand on my kids, because you will never be the same again if that happens. Yeah. Too many men are scared to do that now. You need to be the most approachable person, but focused violence in that I'm not going out there and joining gangs. I'm not going out there just laying waste to people left, right, and center. If someone steps into my realm, into my world, where my family's lives are in danger, my family needs to know that they've got the strongest, the most tough, the most dangerous person that can possibly be there with them to protect them.
Oh. So, I didn't have any strong father figures in my life. Didn't really had a father who, I mean, he was the sort of person that would fight people for me, but it wasn't really it wasn't intelligent the way he did it.
Okay.
And not gonna flame him, but he's just it's just my father was a broken man, you know. Over the years I learned how broken he was, you know, probably because of the alcohol, probably because of most of that. It's probably because he was an overthinker. He had, you know, I don't hate him, but I just feel sorry for him, you know.
It sounds like he was struggling with his own demons.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to deal with those demons. Maybe turned to alcohol to deal with whatever brokenness he had. I think in truth, Lockie, all of us are broken to some degree.
Yeah.
And maybe he didn't have the strong male role model to help him deal with that brokenness.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm glad you don't hate your dad. I don't know what his life was like previous to kids. I don't know what his life was like when he was a kid and those type of things. It doesn't excuse him for being absent. I'm sorry that he was absent in your life. He unfortunately had turned to the wrong things to try and deal with his pain and his trauma. And this is what's going to divide you between him and you. You know, he's got his own pain and trauma. He's got his own brokenness. He turned to alcohol. He was an absent father. What are you going to do? Because his absenteeism in your life has left you broken too.
Yeah.
And so what's going to be required of you now, and this is what separates the boy from the man, what are you going to do with that brokenness? What are you going to do with that hurt? Are you going to turn to drugs and alcohol and women and those type of things to try and dull the pain? Or are you actually going to do something about trying to start the healing process so that you can reform that foundation that your dad should have built for you? All right? And I think, like I said before, right at the beginning of the show, like you've watched your podcasts, you've read your books, start aligning yourself with older men that you respect. Yeah. You know, and I think for me, I look at my life and look, I don't have your story, Lockie. I've been very blessed and very lucky that I had a dad who was present. Okay. My dad has his own brokenness. He has his own hang-ups and those type of things. And, you know, I've obviously lived through the years of his parenthood. There are things that I won't do with my kids that he did. Not that he was abusive or anything like that. I disagree with some things. But my dad was always good at being present. You know, dad was always there to throw the ball, go play cricket. Like, honestly, the reason I could run so fast and jump so high and catch a ball and throw a ball and hit a ball and those type of things because dad spent the time teaching me. You know, so I've been lucky in that. But outside of my dad, I actually think it is important to have other male role models in your life. Okay, and I could point to at least two fellas in my life outside of my dad who were role models to me. Okay, even a female role model. Her name was Miss Juliet Keel. She was my year 6 teacher, and she instilled confidence in me. Okay, so it's important not only to have men in your life, it's important to have women in your life. Strong women, strong men. She taught me to have confidence in myself. The reason I'm a Christian today, the reason I believe in God and I gave my life to Jesus was because of her. When I was 12 years old, 13 years old. So I'm very thankful to her. I look at, I would say he's the main mentor in my life, but he was a youth pastor at our church back in Brisbane, Dave Benson. Probably the most intelligent man I've ever met. Okay. And I found like him being in my life, him being able to pass on advice to me, helped build the foundation that my parents had already built for me. And then I had another fellow, his name was Craig Harris, from the same church. I used to mow lawns with him every Wednesday for years, and just sitting in the car with him and talking about the most important things in life. I learned a lot from him about marriage, about fatherhood. So I can say that I've been shaped, I've been molded, I am who I am today because of all the strong male and female role models I've had in my life. Mum and dad were great. They built a really strong foundation for me. My year 6 teacher, Miss Kill, Dave Benson and Craig Harris. Like, it takes a village to raise a young man, a strong young man, right? So my encouragement to you is make sure that you're looking for those older men and women who've got life experience, who of strong character, who are decent human beings that you can learn off, that you can learn at their feet and ask advice from.
Yeah. It's just, how do you keep a marriage long term? Like, how do you keep it like you love each other, like keep consistent love? Like, how do you do that?
It's important how we define love.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the world today, I think most people define love as, some sort of feeling.
Yeah.
It's the butterflies you feel in your stomach when you see a really pretty girl for the first time, and those type of things, and your heart is palpitating. And I got to tell you, yes, in the beginning, you feel those feelings of love. Like, oh, it's out of control, man. The butterflies in the stomach are crazy. You feel sick even. Like you think you love that girl, and that's nothing but lust and infatuation.
Yeah.
And you're not going to always stay good looking forever, Lockie. Just like I'm not going to stay good looking forever. I mean, I might. I'm pretty good looking. The thing is, I'm going to get older. Do you think that my wife is going to still find me attractive when I'm 80 and pink and wrinkly and those type of things? Chances are no, because love is not built on the outside appearance. Right? I can tell you now that one day when you meet the girl of your dreams, you will feel that the bubbliness inside and the heat rising up your neck every time you look at her. But those things start to fade as time goes on. What happens when that fades away? Does that mean you don't love the person anymore? Does that mean you're not attracted to them anymore? So I think the world has a very superficial idea of what love is. And I think the reality, the actual definition of love, is the choice to stick with that person through thick and thin, to live sacrificially for them, for the betterment of their life. And if your partner is also living sacrificially for you, for the betterment of your life, you're constantly giving to each other. You're constantly serving each other. And so love is a choice. Love is an action. All right? And so Haley and I think we are married, it's 14 years this year, I think. So we were married in December 2010. So yeah, I think this is the 14th year. And love is something you have to work on all the time. You can't take it for granted. You can't take your partner for granted. You have to constantly be working on communication, constantly working on time to spend with that person and talk with them and do things with them. And that becomes even more of an issue when you have kids. We've been parents now for 8 years, and do you think that we have all the free time we used to have? We don't. Like, Haley and I, like, before kids, like, for our free time in the holidays, we would organize multi-day hikes in Tasmania and New Zealand, and we'd go skiing, and we'd go to the beach and, have a great time. We can't do those things anymore with having 3 kids, between 8 and 6. We don't have the spare, half an hour just to sit down and debrief and talk. And the kids demand a lot of our time. And so in order for us to make sure that this marriage is successful, we do really need to schedule things in. We need to schedule, like, okay, when I get home, it's not about the kids. we make ourselves a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. We go and sit for at least 15 minutes. Just talk to each other. Just be present with each other. Not get distracted by your phone or Netflix or what the kids are doing, but actually intentionally making time for each other each day just to talk, just to spend time with each other, be in each other's presence. And I think that if you don't do that, right, you will start to lose touch with each other. Now, Mr. Modlin, everyone knows Mr. Modlin. Like he's someone that I look up to. He is someone that I have sought advice from on marriage, someone I've sought advice from on being a dad. And he coined the term, or maybe he read it in a book, I don't know, I'm going to give him the kudos for it. He calls it couch time. Spend couch time every single day with your wife. She is your world for that 15 minutes at least, and you focus on each other and nothing else. So I think that's part of it. I think as a man in particular, there's a level of self-sacrifice too. I'm going to sacrifice the things that I want to make sure that, my wife is making sure that her emotional cup is filled up, her physical cup is filled up, her spiritual cup is filled up. And so for any marriage to be successful, both people, the man and the wife, need to stop focusing inward, start focusing outward, and start looking out for each other's needs. And then also, there's an amazing book that I really recommend that every single person reads. It's called The 5 Love Languages. Now, most of them escape me, but some of them are gifts, some of them are physicality, some of them is quality time. Another one is words of affirmation. And the fifth one escapes me at the moment. But learning your spouse's love language is important too. Okay, I'm not naturally a gift giver. I think I'm actually quite selfish in that way. And so Hal's, one of her love languages is gifts. Just to get her something nice or do something nice for her. So, for example, something that I'll do for Hal's, she does shift work at the hospital, and something that I'll do without fail most nights, and this is because it's taken me a long time to get to this point, fellas, is that when she gets back from a late shift from the hospital, I have her pajamas set out on the bed for her so that she can just get straight out of her work uniform, get straight into pajamas. There's usually a cup of tea waiting. And so when she gets home, there's things that she doesn't have to do. She doesn't have to go digging around in her closet for her pajamas. She doesn't have to go and make herself a cup of tea. So these are small things that I do for Hal's pretty much every single time she has a late shift at the hospital, just to make things that little bit easier for her. Okay, and it's not that much of an inconvenience, is it? It takes me a couple of minutes of my own time just to go and get her clothes, lay them out nicely for her, get the kettle going. It's not a lot of hard work, and I think for a lot of couples, I think they don't do those little things for each other. It doesn't have to be big dramatic things. Just be consistent in loving gestures that you do for your spouse. Hal's biggest love language is quality time. When Hal's and I don't spend quality time together, her emotional tank drains. And so that couch time, that important 15 minutes of each day, whether it's right at the beginning of the day when we get home from school or at night, at least as long as we are spending some focused time together, that is good for her. So I know it's a bit of a long-winded question about how do we keep marriages going? Keep the communication open always. Be honest. Be willing to admit fault, and don't always be defensive. Okay, human beings, we always want to defend ourselves when we're accused of something. Sometimes when we're accused of something, it's worthwhile us sitting there, taking it on and thinking about it, but we immediately go, no, I didn't do that, and how dare you? We get too defensive. Learn your spouse's love language. Live a life sacrificially for them. If they live a life self-sacrificially for you, you're constantly giving to each other. You're keeping lines of communication open. You're being honest with each other, and you're building a life together. I think those are some of the secrets to keeping a happy, consistent, long marriage.
Well, I'm not married. All right.
That's a good thing.
Nah.
You're
Thank
too
you
young,
very
man.
much. Well, I gotta ask you something. Is that in your teenage years, should you be dating or focusing on yourself? Because there's some teenagers that really focus on women
Yeah.
and just think about women. So, I
Look.
mean, it's a biological thing to get women, especially at this age when your testosterone, so
Out of control.
yeah, out of
Out of
control.
control.
But do you think that that teenage boys should not be like even thinking about women, just always consistently thinking about themselves, or is a thing that I've heard of is called a day one girl. All right,
Day one girl.
a day one girl. Like you find a high quality woman when you're a teenage boy, and she supports you like all through the years, and she doesn't distract you. So what do you think? There's 3 options. Don't date at all. Date, like date all the time, or just find that one woman.
Date all the time. Good grief. That sounds like a nightmare. Look, I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah.
Being a teenager many, many moons ago, falling in love was such an exciting experience. I think in high school, I think I had 3 girlfriends in high school from years 10 to 12. They did not last long because none of us were mature. I will say this: it's really exciting. Falling in love, okay, and the raging testosterone and hormones and those type of things. It is rather exciting, but it's probably one of the things I regret most about high school life. Not that I did anything provocative or anything naughty or anything like that. It's just more that I should have been focusing on my friends. I should have been focusing on my academics. I should have been focusing on my spiritual life. I should have been focusing on the sports that I was playing at the time. Because, you know, when you're 15 and you're 16 years old and you've fallen head over heels in love with someone, in love, in lust, it's all you can think about. It consumes you. And I think for me particular, you know, my parents, they met each other when they were 16. Met each other at 16. They were in year 10. And they're still married today. And so for me, when I was younger, when I was 15, 16 years old, I always looked at my folks and went, oh, that's exactly what I want. I don't want the drama of having multiple girlfriends and those type of things. I just want to meet the one. And I want to build my life with that person from the beginning. And so for me, I think I lived with my heart on my sleeve too much when it came to romance. Because, man, the first girl I was going to date, man, yep, we're getting married. Yep, we're going to make it work, and she's going to be the one. We're going to get married. Things are going to be exactly like my parents. And I got to tell you, when that first relationship ended in year 10 or year 11 or sometime back then, I was depressed. I was so upset. I think that the sadness that I felt from that, again, I wasn't mentally, physically, or spiritually mature. All right, I was a kid. I was 16. You know, I wanted to meet someone to marry, spend the rest of my life with, and that's a fine goal. That is a fine desire to have, fellas. If you have the strong desire to meet someone of your dreams, to marry them, build a family with, and die all together, that's a wonderful dream and a goal to have. But for me, back then, when that didn't work out with the first relationship, I felt like my world fell apart. You know, I was like a depressed wreck for months. I remember my year 11th year 11. Can I say year 11th? I felt like that was just a year of depression, sadness, you know, and what an awful way to live. I should have just been hanging out with the fellas. I should have been playing rugby. Should have actually been working on studying maths and actually getting good results at school, but I was depressed over a girl. Did not have the emotional integrity to actually deal with a breakup, you know, and that happened 2 more times after that. Girls that I was absolutely in love with, and they all ended it. You know, so my 3 girlfriends in high school, they all ended it, and I was sad, and I cried, and I thought the world was going to end. You know, honestly, you guys know me from being a year 9 coordinator. I always made this joke that teenage love makes me feel sick, and then I'll pretend to vomit. You know, the amount of times that a year 9 student will come up to me like, oh, guess what? I got a boyfriend now. I got a girlfriend now. And I'll be like, oh, that's so gross. You'll break up in 2 weeks' time and you'll be depressed. I say it tongue in cheek. I do say it in tongue in cheek. I don't feel like teenagers need the complications of teenage love. Do some of those relationship work out? Absolutely. Absolutely. We recently just had two couples from Glasshouse Christian College who were dating in year 12, who both of them got married recently. Teenage love could absolutely work out, right? But it's the exception, not the rule, you know. And you shouldn't be bouncing from relationship to relationship in high school, okay? I think it's okay to maybe look and to desire that long-term relationship that you'll build with someone one day. Totally fine. But really, you know, statistically, scientifically, psychologically, us as men, we don't fully mentally mature until we're in our mid-20s. You know, it's much later than women, psychologically and statistically. You know, so I would say that for the vast majority of us, we're probably not ready for a long-term committed relationship, you know, until we hit that sweet spot in the mid-20s, you know. And even then, even though I got married at 26, I think I struggled with the responsibilities of marriage earlier on. I think I was still quite selfish. I don't think I met the needs of Haley as much as she needed. And it's only now that I'm close to 40 that I'm starting to get things right. All right? So it's a little bit of an indictment on me. You know, I feel like I'm starting to get things right as a husband finally. I'm getting things right as a dad, I think. Now as I hit 40. That's okay. So, short answer, just stay away from relationships while you're in high school. Honestly, you don't need the extra complication that comes with teenage living anyway. You've got your academics to think of. You're still trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. You're still mentally and physically maturing as an adult male. So why add the complication of teenage love? It's super exciting. It really is. But you need to be mature enough to kind of go, I'm not actually ready for that. You know, and again, I suppose that's probably what separates the boys from the men kind of thing is like, we want that instant gratification of, I just want the butterflies right now. You know, wait, I think romance is something that's worth waiting for. I think you should be focusing on becoming the right person, you know, a high quality male, as you talked about. Well, focus on those things first, you know, instead of chasing tail, I guess, you know, because I think that can end quite badly for both people.
Yeah.
I feel like I talk a lot.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Thank you. You're the podcast host. Thank you very much. All right. So let's talk about another topic.
Sure.
All right. Let's talk about your Christian life. Sure. All right. How did Jesus change your life?
So, I came to a loving knowledge of Jesus when I was in year 7.
Yeah.
I was 12, turning 13. I may have even been 13 back then. I really struggled throughout primary school as someone who had very low self-esteem. I had very low self-worth. I was actually bullied quite a bit in primary school. Didn't have a lot of friends. I was this really skinny individual who people looked down on. I was bad academically. I was bad sports-wise, you know. And, I was just someone who lacked confidence. We kind of went to church as a family back in South Africa. You know, we weren't go every Sunday kind of Christian family. But we occasionally attended church, and so I attended youth groups and those type of things. And it wasn't until we moved from Johannesburg to Cape Town in South Africa that, I started attending church more regularly with my family. I was going to a youth group every Wednesday in year 6 and year 7 at my school. And like I said, through my my year 6 teacher, Miss Juliet Keel, she's the one that really showed me how much God loves me, and that I was worth something. That the Creator of the universe loved skinny old me, who was bad at sports, who was bad at academics, who seemingly didn't have a talented bone in my body, had no friends, had no personal skills, and it was just amazing that all of these created beings around me, all these other humans, they may despise me, look down on me, and even hate me, but the Creator of the universe, the one who started it all, he actually loves me and actually has a plan for my life. That filled me with all types of confidence, Lockie. Like I said, I gave my life to Jesus and trusted in him for my righteousness when I was 13 years of age. And it's amazing what it sparked in me. Okay. It's because of God, I had all of this courage, all of this confidence in who he's created me to be. Believe it or not, became academic in middle school. I was like, wow, getting A's for stuff? That's not... I used to go for extra lessons back in primary school because I just sucked at everything. All of a sudden I'm winning age championships for swimming and athletics, and the genetics was always there, the talent was always there, but having the self-confidence in that I'm this newly created being in God's eyes, man, it's filled me with all types of confidence. And so next thing you know, I'm playing sport, captain of the cricket team, opening bowler, age champion for athletics, age champion for swimming when I moved here to Australia, even got involved in musical theatre through my church. I never thought in my life I'd be singing and dancing on stage in front of, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. So being a Christian, at least I think just opened me up to who I could be in Christ. I didn't have to walk around feeling absolutely dejected about who I was. I was free to be who Christ created me to be. And so he is the foundation of who I am today. He has molded me and shaped me into who I am today. Like, you fellas would never think that I was an introvert. An extrovert, sorry. Like, when I was a kid, I was so shy. And all I've done in front of you fellas for years now is talk and carry on. And I'm quite a lively individual, you guys would say. I think I went from this really awkward, introverted kid to someone who's actually enthusiastic about life, can't shut up, can't stop moving, complete extrovert. Yeah, foundational to who I am today, mate. If it wasn't for Christ in my life, I'd probably be that sad little boy from primary school, no friends, no talent, feeling depressed constantly. I found freedom in Jesus.
Jesus, there's a rise of nihilism over the world where they don't believe in God, and it's just how do you think? It's just that, is it better to not believe in God or to believe in God? Because there's some benefits of believing in God. But I've seen people don't believe in God. They just absolutely they think everything is meaningless.
Sure.
Like they don't think we're a bunch of atoms, bunch of all of that. And I've seen people making excuses for just live as if there's no God. Don't care at all, just be absurdist, alright? And do you think it's better to be a nihilist who doesn't believe in God and just think everything's meaningless? Or is it better to be a person who thinks that they believe in God, they believe in Jesus? Do you think which one is the better?
Look,
Yep.
the answer would be quite obvious.
Yeah.
Coming from my perspective. I think that people want to be in charge or in control of their own destiny. People want to decide for themselves what's right and what's wrong. People don't want to have to admit fault or take responsibility for the things that they've done. Because as soon as you admit God, as soon as you admit that there is a creator, then he who created absolutely everything has also created moral law. What is actually right and what is actually wrong. And so we live in a society today where morality is subjective. I get to choose what's right and what's wrong. Okay, and the problem with that is if we look throughout history, the Nazis had their own version of what was right and what was wrong. And we saw from the Nazis millions and millions of Jewish people were slaughtered, put in concentration camps and gassed to death. You know, you kind of look at what's happening in Israel and Gaza right now, Russia and Ukraine. Everybody has their own idea of what's right and wrong, right? And so because of that, you know, we've got people lobbing, you know, missiles at each other and shooting bullets at each other and cutting each other down with knives and those type of things. And so if morality is just subjective, the Nazis aren't wrong. You know, Israel and Gaza aren't wrong. Russia and Ukraine aren't wrong. They're just living out their morality. So I think if morality is subjective, I think we have chaos. So believing in God doesn't make you a good person. Let's just put that out there right now, because there are many people who throughout history have believed in God, have even claimed to be Christian, but have still committed atrocities. All right. So there's a difference between believing in God and actually giving your life over to God. And so as a Christian, I've submitted my entire existence to Jesus. Okay. All I want to do is live out the will of Christ in my life. The Bible is very specific about what is considered good religion to God. Good religion to God is clothing the naked, feeding the hungry, taking care of the widow, visiting people in prison. All right? And I think that if you understand what Jesus did for us on the cross, and you understand that the selfishness that you exhibit every single day put him on that cross, and if we don't actually have Jesus, that selfishness will actually end up with us leading pretty awful lives here on earth. But then in eternity, we live in the absence of God, what we would call hell. That's a scary thought. And so I think for me, because I know what Jesus did for me on the cross, I know what I'm saved from, I know where I'm going once I pass on from here, I'm compelled to live out that good religion of clothing the naked, feeding the hungry, giving to the poor, giving of myself to you fellas in my job as a teacher. You know, using my free time to mentor, using my free time to tutor, using my free time to coach teams and those type of things. That is all bringing heaven to earth. As far as the Bible's concerned, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm living in a servant way, I'm bringing heaven to earth. That's what heaven is. People serving each other, looking out for each other. And so I think that those who decide to live a life without God, in their mind, you know, everything is permissible. You know, we could even go to the extremes of, and this is an extreme, but it was quite prevalent in history gone past, pedophilia. You know, the Spartans used to rape young boys as a way of dominating them, but then also bringing them into their ranks and those type of things. You know, if morality is subjective, well, that's just permissible, right? If God doesn't exist, that's just permissible. You can do whatever you want. But because I believe God exists, there absolutely is an absolute right and an absolute wrong. I think that is detailed in the Bible. And the Bible is my foundation for how I should live each and every single day as a Christian. Right? So for some people, being a Christian is complete hell. You mean I don't get to sleep with any woman I want? You mean that I can't do drugs when I want? You mean that I can't just watch pornography on repeat? Man, to some people, they want the freedom, that they call it freedom, to do what absolutely they want. But in reality, they are shackled. They are enslaved to their lusts. They cannot live this life without having 100 or 200 body count. They can't. They are slaves to injecting themselves with drugs every single day. They're enslaved to constantly watching pornography or violent television and doing violent acts because they think that's freedom. The reality is they can't stop. So who's actually enslavement here? People will look at me as a Christian and go, "You're enslaved to a bunch of rules." Well, no. The Bible has given me freedom to live how God wanted me to live. And an analogy that I often give is, when is a train most free? I know it sounds weird. Is a train free when it's riding the railways that it's been created to ride on? Or is it free when it gets to hop off those railways whenever it wants and go down the road and onto the beach and into the water? What happens to a train if it derails? What happens to a train when it's riding on tar? What happens to a train when it's riding on grass? It gets wrecked. It doesn't move. It doesn't function in its design anymore. We weren't designed to have a 200 body count, fellas. We weren't designed to constantly shoot up drugs and party all the time and have multiple partners and get wildly drunk. We weren't designed to do that. And I think that true freedom comes when we actually follow what the Bible says is moral living. So, to some, not believing in God and doing what they want is the best for them. Again, they got this whole subjective idea of what reality is. But I look at them with pity because I look at them and I go, you're actually enslaved to your world. And I'm free to actually live the way that God created us to live.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna stop rapping here.
Start rap. That's it. As in like, I got to rap for you. I am the hip hop hippopotamus. Yeah. My lyrics are bottomless.
No, I mean rapping.
Oh, you want to wrap it up? I thought he wanted to actually rap, fellas. No. I was going to get my hip hop on. Going to get my inner Eminem going.
No. All right, this is the final question.
Yeah.
All right. The audience, here's this scenario. This teenage boy who's absolutely lost, absolutely like a father figure. What's your like little Timmy here? He's like, yeah, I'm too lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
Clearly, his voice hasn't broken. Yes, go on.
So, what's your advice to little Timmy?
Little Timmy. Often Timmy might not have the bravery to approach someone, to help him out, to seek advice and those type of things. And I kind of see my role as a teacher. And the reason I became a teacher was I actually wanted to be a father to the fatherless. Right from the get-go, I wanted to be a positive male role model in the lives of all the kids that I come across. That was my goal. That was my desire and my passion. And it's why I will continue to be a teacher until I die one day. I would hope that men like me, and I hope that in the eyes of you fellas, I hope that I actually am a positive male role model and that you respect me. I would hope that men like me would be on the lookout for kids like Timmy. Because often Timmy is probably too traumatized to reach out. And so my hope is that me and other men like me will reach out first. And then the process from there is actually just to be as present as I can be in that kid's life. Now, he's not my own child. I can't go home with him, and I can't take him to footy on the weekend and those type of things. But if he's coming to my school, maybe I can start spending some time with him at morning teas and lunchtimes and those type of things. I can start encouraging him to get involved in programs. And I think from that point onwards, the ball becomes in Timmy's court. And then I would say the same thing I said to you. Be like, hey, you know what a positive male role model looks like. You know what a good dad looks like because of my involvement in your life. Feel free to open up to me. Feel free to come and talk to me whenever. I have had many kids over my 16 years of teaching come and knock on my lunch on the staff room door at the PE department there and say, so I need to talk. I just need some help. I need some advice. Male and female students. I've had them all come and see me for various big life talks and those type of things. And for Timmy, I really hope that someone would find him. And I really hope that when someone finds him, that he is brave enough to kind of step out of his hurt, out of his trauma, to actually open up. Because I think there's a big lie in society that you are a wuss as a man if you cry, or if you talk, you share your feelings. Fellas, like, men are committing suicide on a ridiculous basis every single day. And it's because we've believed this lie that we cannot share our emotions, that we can't cry in front of each other. And that's a bold-faced lie. Crying is a gift from God to release the tension and the stress and the sadness that we experience and the disappointment that we experience. Crying is a good thing. Because you cry doesn't mean you're less of a man. It means that is the process of healing. And then sharing your emotions and sharing your feelings is in the next step in that process to healing, to becoming, put back together. So I would encourage Timmy to find someone he respects, get alongside that person, open up to them. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Shake my hand, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
No worries, mate. It's been my pleasure talking to you.
All right. Well, I hope you learned a lot from this video, and this is Lock In with Lachlan.